Hey, what's up guys? Ryan Schultz here from E39 Source in San Diego, California. This is my 2002 BMW E39 540i. Today, a video that I don't think many people will follow, but an excuse to make a video nonetheless. It's a bit of a trunk restoration video. I've actually never done this before. I've had all these pieces out individually, though not at once, and I've never replaced them all. So, this 540 has a really dirty trunk interior, at least by my standards. I've certainly seen worse. It's completely vacuumed and as clean as it gets, but there's an oil stain back there. This stuff's more brown than gray, though it doesn't look terrible on camera. This was all pilled up, and I actually had a little tool that you could de-pill it, and that worked surprisingly well. But I thought maybe I could get away with just replacing this bottom piece of carpeting. So I purchased this a few weeks ago. This still exists. It's over in Europe, so you've got to wait 3 or 4 weeks for delivery. But it came in, looks great, fits well, but then the rest of it looks awful because it's not the same color anymore. And this material, especially these flat surfaces here, just more brown than gray. So we're gonna go ahead and replace all of it, including the piece on the trunk lid, up there against the rear seats, in addition to the DSP box cover. Now there's multiple versions of this stuff depending on your specific vehicle. So cars with folding seats get different side panels, in addition to obviously not that solid piece up there at the bulkhead. Then if you had an E39 without DSP, say an M5 with M audio or a lesser E39 without the DSP option, you won't have this box up here. You don't have any speakers. It's just a metal trunk ceiling, so you won't need that part. Vehicles with navigation, of course, use a different door here that has a cutout for the computer. European cars had a little tray over here, at least the M5s did. I think these are all going to be the same. And the one for without folding seats, those are all the same. But certainly check out Real OEM. It's under vehicle trim, luggage compartment. You'll find the correct part numbers for your BMW. This one here, as I said, 2002 540. We don't have folding seats. We don't have navigation. We do have DSP. It's a North American car. So I've purchased what I hope are the correct parts, and I hope that they all match. Some of these had to come from Europe. Other ones were like 4 or 5 days here in the States. So step one, I'm actually going to get a few pictures, so you'll see a cut here in a moment. But step one will just be, of course, removing anything you have in the trunk, including this little net that I really like. And I actually took the tie-down straps out recently. Just haven't replaced those yet, but they'll be back soon enough. So our easiest piece to remove here will just be the floor. It flips up. There's not really anything holding it in. Just pick it up, pull it out. Up next, we're going to remove these little doors, little oddment doors, as I think BMW calls them. So we've got these plastic push rivets at the bottom. We can use something shaped like this, a little pry tool to get under the head of the rivet and then just pry it up. It's going to look like that. We've got 3 on each door. And while we've got this tool out, we're going to move up to the top of our side panels. And there's one of those on each side. Those are going to be tighter because those go into plastic. Look at that, I'm missing one. Wow, I didn't know that. But they go into little plastic support brackets that quarter turn into the chassis there. So try not to use an excessive amount of force. Maybe wiggle it and pry it a little bit just so you don't break those support arms. With the push pins out of there, you can just open your door and remove it from the car. Up next, we're going to remove the DSP box in its entirety, as we'll need that out of the car to change the carpeting panel on there. So if we come down in here and look up, you'll see some brass 8mm screws. There's one on the left and one on the right. And those screws only hold the carpeting, actually the box as well, but the carpeting and the box to the ceiling of your trunk. You can release those and then peel the carpeting down. The box will stay up. There's another screw or two hidden by the carpeting. So we'll remove the 2 visible ones, hinge the carpeting down. That's going to expose another 1 or 2 8mm screws. We'll pull that out. Then at the forward edge, the subwoofer box has some little tabs that protrude forwards, and they go into a fastening provision in the chassis. The whole thing just hinges up there. Then the electrical connection for the subwoofer box is on the left side. It's a large connector with tabs. You squeeze the tabs together and wiggle the connector off and to the left. There's a third 8mm screw all the way over on the right. With the 3 screws out, you'll see that the carpeting can now hinge down, doing a few things. Particularly on the left side, there's the electrical connector, and right above it is the final 8mm screw holding the actual subwoofer box up. So before you remove that screw, unhook the electrical connection first and push that out of the way. You can even move it back behind the carpeting here. Then release the screw. DSP box is going to come down and out. Mine was a bit sticky, but you can support the weight with one hand and then get some hands here and just kind of pull and wiggle. It'll come off. This is what would be up against the ceiling of the trunk, of course. And if we flip it over, we'll see that there's just a couple more of those push rivets holding the carpeting to our speaker assembly. So get the old trusty pry tool and remove them. Up next, we're going to remove the forward bulkhead carpeting, and I think we're actually going to start inside the vehicle for that. That big black plastic plug in the center, you can get to the forward side of it in here. Open up your center armrest, pull back the leather, and then you can see the tabs here. So if we kind of just poke the tabs together in towards the center, and it falls out. You'll notice on the corners, 2 on the left and 2 on the right, we've got some plastic threaded rivets or screws, little plastic nut and bolt type configuration. That actually holds the centerpiece to the side pieces. So in theory, we should be able to bring out these 3 pieces together. You'll see that there's a hook right here. And what I did was just lift the trim up over the hook. The hook will pop out. I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. Pull, and it looks like we're free. So this will all come out together, and trust me, you want to assemble this together too, because this car was missing these originally and I had to do it in the car, which was really unpleasant since you can't counterhold the back of this as you try to tighten down that nut. So we can probably do an even better job now putting these 3 things together outside of the vehicle. There it is. Pretty much just leaves us with 1 piece, and that's up here on the trunk lid. So we've got a bit of disassembly to do here, of course. Your 2002 and later cars will have this additional handle here. This is like the little emergency escape handle, and it remains to be seen if the replacement part already has a hole for that or if we're going to have to poke a hole. The part number doesn't seem to have changed for pre and post facelift, so it looks like it doesn't have a hole. So we're going to have to use some sort of a pick, line that up, and just make a little hole here. But you can pull this handle forwards. Yeah, I remember that now. We've got to cut a hole for this black thing. But before we can really start that, we've got to remove the trunk toolkit and this lowermost piece of plastic trim. So bring out your plastic pry tool. We've got a push rivet here. We've got another push rivet here. Up inside the handle on the left driver's side of the car, there's a small trap door. You're going to use a pick or a flathead screwdriver to pry that little trap door out very carefully. That will reveal 1 Phillips head screw. You'll take that Phillips screw out. Where it meets the carpeting in the front, there's 4 plastic push rivets. You can gently get some fingers behind them, just pull straight down. You can buy those clips separately if they break, and keep in mind you still, at least I still have my screw on this left side, so I may not be able to get that last one yet. Oh, there it is. There's the trap door for the screw. There's the screw, simple Phillips head. On the back side of the trap door, you'll see what holds it up there. There's little, very delicate plastic tabs. So that's why you want to get a pick through that middle slot and just pull straight down, not to the left or right. Toolkit removal is a 2-part job. So step 1, before you release the screws at the bottom, is open it up, and we're going to detach our little strap here. We're going to do that on the trunk lid itself. So you just kind of rotate this thing about 45 degrees and it pops out of there. Then we can close it again. It'll stay installed with the screw at the top. But on your facelift cars, and I think this was like a 1999 thing, we get these felt covered Phillips screws, so they really don't call much attention to themselves, but if you get up in there, they are Phillips head screws. I had this off a few weeks ago as this trunk lid was recently repainted, so that's why we can see them a little bit more. If they've never been turned, the felt kind of isn't indented in a plus shape. So we're gonna go ahead and remove those 4. Then the toolkit has plastic tabs that come down between the trunk lid body and the carpeting, right here and right here. So as we get those screws out, we're gonna lift the trunk kit up and out to free it from the carpeting. All that's holding in this carpeting now, in my case, is still up here with that handle, but around the perimeter of this, there's just more plastic rivets. Not here, actually, the screws do that, but kind of in the lower corners, there's plastic rivets that hold it onto the body. So if we get back there gently, we can kind of see where they are, and then you should be using a tool, like I'm not, but it just pulls away like that. For the handle, we've got a Bowden cable that goes in there. It's a bit of a hammer on the end of the cable, And you'll see if you play with this a little bit, you can push this plastic out of the way, and then with the help of a third hand or a pick or a screwdriver or a thumb, you can free the cable from the handle. The last thing you'll notice as you remove the carpeting is the electrical connector for the interior light. That light is exceptionally fragile. Mine is about 3 weeks old and I'm scared to death I'm gonna break it when I remove it. It's this little plastic tab over here that cinches it in there. And when you push it back in, the key is to get some fingers on this side of it and keep that tab from snapping into place. It will crack right at the hinge point there. So you want to be really, really gentle with that. Take a few moments and try not to break it. And then nextly, we've got to figure out how to remove this, which I retrofit this to my M5 years ago, but I don't remember how it works. So let me play with it. I'm going to need some small needle nose pliers and a small flathead screwdriver. And this is from the inside that we can't see as it's installed. We've got 3 pieces here, and this outer piece kind of acts as a washer that clamps on to the inner piece and sandwiches the center piece. Does that make sense? So you're going to pry this up, and you need the pliers because this is what you see inside the car. But on the back side of that, just going to squeeze this together a little bit, and you can see there's a partition there in the center. So do the top part first, squeeze it together and pry this piece off of it, then come down to the bottom, squeeze it together, pry this piece off of it, and then your 3 pieces are separate. That's the entirety of the trunk interior. Lid, DSP box, both doors, sides and front partition, bottom carpeting. So I think we're going to go in reverse order now. Start with the trunk lid. That piece is going to be right here, and it doesn't look like there's a hole. So annoyingly, we're going to have to measure where that hole goes and make a hole. As we transition into working with the new pieces, you're best off to wash your hands. This stuff is very easily stained and not so easily cleaned. Here's my approach for the hole. We line the new piece up on top of the old piece and make sure that they're justified horizontally, meaning line up the light cutout so the new piece isn't too far left or right. Then we're going to come back here. I used a silver Sharpie and just trace out where the hole's going to be. Now, it's not exact because we're sitting on top of the other one. We're going to need to measure this distance here that the new piece overlaps the old one. Looks like about 6 millimeters or so, and offset our hole that same distance. Hole dimensions are approximately 7.3 millimeters wide by 23.3 millimeters tall. Rounded corners, I don't think that will matter too much. This is not an exercise of precision, and we want to get as close as we can. And I found the offset measurement to be 8.3 millimeters down that way. Okay, the post faces towards the rear of the car, or closer to you as you're standing looking at it in this position. That piece goes in first, then the hood, and then the little keeper slides on the back and clicks into position quite nicely. I found the best instrument for cutting this carpeting is a X-Acto knife with a fresh and sharp blade. You'll notice the new carpeting doesn't actually come with the clips. We need a total of 6 of those. On real OEM, you'd think they're part number 14. They're part number 11. As you clip the new panel into place, you want to feed your wire through the hole or just install the light outside of the car and then plug it in. And if you've got this, you want to feed your little hammer on the Bowden cable through the hole so we'll be able to reattach the handle. Lining these up, just look through the side, make sure they're lined up before you push or smack them into place. They're really, really tight, and thankfully there's a bit of movement on the back, so if they don't look lined up, you can move the clip around until it is lined up with the hole in the body. And then I just use my knuckles to give a nice firm push until each one snapped into place. So at this point, we're ready to reinstall this upper trim in addition to the trunk toolkit, which all goes back together the same way it came apart. If you'd like to go above and beyond, which is the entire point of this project, you can replace the screws that hold the trunk toolkit to the trunk lid. That's the part number right there, 71116750-167. All the rest of the parts that I'm using in this DIY will be listed in the description below this video. And last but not least, can't forget that, which goes about there. Continuing reassembly in the opposite order of disassembly, I'm going to go ahead and build this. Take our left and right side pieces, line them up with a new back piece. The front of these screws can be driven inside the trunk with a flathead screwdriver. And it looks like on the rear, you can probably just hold it with your thumb. It's not going to be super tight. Okay, those screw together easily enough. You can really get away with just pressing the back nuts on there. They don't seem to thread very well since it's all plastic, but make that nice and tight. And then if you've got an eye for detail, you'll notice the new piece on the left side, the driver's side, doesn't have these little pre-wired buttons that came with it from factory. So We're gonna get to make some more holes to move those over, maybe. Looks like they're just pressed in there actually, so we can just use a punch tool. They're pretty much in line with the hole for that plastic pop rivet that goes right there. Okay, the first hole is 40 millimeters down from the center of the fastening hole, and the distance between the holes is 48 millimeters, though you don't have to measure. Back in business. I made the initial hole with a small straight pick and then bored it out to the thickness of this, which is 6 millimeters. That wasn't quite enough, so I had to kind of turn it around in there, bore it out to probably about 7 mil. All right, you want to hinge in this 3-piece, kind of one corner at a time. And the very top of the forward piece does kind of cinch up in there. It doesn't hang out, it goes up in there. And it fits pretty well once installed. Here, I did replace that missing fastener, of course. I've got them on both sides. So now we're ready for the DSP box. Well, I guess we've got to put the little plug in there first, which we'll do from this side. Just line it up and push it till it snaps in. The worst part of this entire job is the DSP box. It's tough without another set of hands or some help, but it's doable. And it goes back just the way it came in. We got the carpet on there first. You might skip putting in this plastic rivet right here. That will allow you to lower the carpeting more to thread in that first screw that only goes through the subwoofer box. The other 3 screws hold up both the subwoofer box and the carpeting, so they go in last. And don't forget to plug the thing in. Wow, the year was 2002, and it was perfect. Check it out. There's still a bit of a slight color mismatch between the floor piece and the side pieces, but they're all new and genuine, and that's as good as it's gonna get. This thing comes with the rubber straps for reference. It doesn't come with the net, that's separate, that goes in next. And something I kind of hoped for, these brand new doors over here, they're super tight. You gotta push them, and like not annoyingly tight, but it just feels really nice. On some older cars with high mileage, like my M5, these have been opened a lot and moved around a lot over the last 20 some years. So they kind of fall open sometimes. That's definitely not gonna happen here. Fantastic. And that's in, and we're looking great. I've got one more piece coming for this car that's probably a week or 2 out, so I think I'm gonna pen this video until that. A bit of a finishing touch. And in the meantime, I've got to get over to Home Depot. Need to buy some manure and paint with loosely attached lids. We've got one more piece here in the lower trunk opening trim here. You can't buy the upper piece anymore, it doesn't exist, but this one still does. Note that it doesn't come with that little door there in the center, so if you'd like to replace that, order it separately. Simply held on with 4 of those rivets, and behind the doors here we have 2 small 10mm kind of M5 thread plastic screws. Real easy to replace and further refresh the trunk interior. Okay, 2 finishing touches actually. One of them is the sticker. It doesn't come with the new door. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense, but you have to buy the stickers separately. Part number, at least the last 7 digits, are down here. I'll link the entire thing in the description below this video. It's overpriced, of course it is, about $18 for the sticker, but this is proper for the 540. Maybe different for the M5, though this does say fuel pump M5 on here. You peel it off and eyeball it, stick it on there. Part 2, an aftermarket thing. Not usually into that, though I certainly am in this case. So speaking of M's, the M5s back in the day, we've got Silverstone galore here and Blue Water. There's another Silverstone out front. The M5s back in the day, in period 2000 to 03, maybe a little bit beyond that, BMW manufactured the M5 specific trunk mat for the interior of the trunk. Had an M5 logo there instead of the BMW badge, but they never made one, as far as I'm aware, for the standard 5 Series. So a local enthusiast here in town pioneered the project. He's bringing the floor mats back to production for both regular BMW and the M5 for Euro cubbies and folding seats. You get to pick your spec. This car, of course, US spec right door and no folding seats, unfortunately. And this is anthracite. This is not black carpeting. This is like genuine BMW anthracite. Looks just like it would have if BMW made this. We'll get a look at the logo here in a silver stitching. This is designed to look like the kind of the BMW badge that's on the driver's floor mat on that reinforced heel pad that they added many years ago. He's even done a really nice job on the backing as well. It's a nice heavy duty yet still soft rubber material to give it some friction against the gray carpeting. I haven't noticed it move around or start to roll up at all. Just a nice subtle touch, add some contrast to the trunk. More importantly, at least in my case, was to keep those paint manure stains off of the nice fresh gray carpeting that now safely lives underneath the trunk mat. Quick little peek at an M5 mat here. Just installed this for a customer. 02 Blue Water M5. Looks great. This is a non-split fold USA spec. of the M5 version of the mat. So if you're insane like I am and you want to spend a bunch of time and money making your trunk so perfect you can't use it, that's how you do it. And it looks awesome. Thanks for watching this one, guys. We'll talk in the next E39 source video.